All right.
Okay, so the roadmap webinar is where we want to show you how you can learn programming effectively. So, what does it actually mean? Um, Something that I faced personally was that I asked a friend of mine who was placed in, I guess he was placed in Microsoft or somewhere else. But when I asked him for a particular topic about how should I learn for myself, they told me just practice. But practice from where? How should I learn? And how should I go about it? They weren't able to answer me very clearly because I guess they were just smart enough to understand it by themselves. But I found it a little difficult for me. And I figured out that there might be more people like me. So this webinar is aimed at everyone who finds it even a little bit difficult to follow through, but they should find a way to get back on track and reach where you want to be. Your goal is the company of your choice. And through this roadmap, we want to make sure that you get your choice. So we will go forward with a few disclaimers. All right. So we guide others to a treasure that we possess. I got placed in Telstra. I'm an upcoming developer in Telstra. And I was actually very happy with that because I actually had researched on the company myself. I knew that I wanted this and I got what I wanted because I chose it and I had followed through. We had a period of at least 2 months to prepare and we were a bit confused when we were beginning with it. So what we did was we made a small plan, and this is the plan that we are going to be going across. And we hope that you find this plan as helpful as if we found it for ourselves. All right. So the roadmap is to the best of our knowledge. Whatever links, resources, and methods that we are about to show you are they worked for us, so we can say that it could work for you as well. It was something that I had tried to engineer, and Mehdi had helped me across with it. And if it helped us, we're sure that it will help you as well. All right, so we are going to first start with the first portion of the roadmap, and that is with data structures and algorithms. I'm sure you might have heard this a couple of times. Even if you haven't, don't worry, we will go about it. The first part is obviously choosing a language. We recommend using the first of C++ and Java. You may choose Python, but we will go across why C++ and Java are much more preferred. We will then move on to something called the standard template library and the collections framework. The standard template library is a part of C++ and collections is a part of Java. Spoj 60's most solved problems, they help you build logic. The goal of a software developer is, let's put it this way. You have a real world problem. It is your goal to find a solution to it. But even after finding a solution, you should know how to convert it to code. Translating your logic to code is where a coding language comes into being because they have a few control structures that help you do that. At the same time, it comes with a little bit of practice. When we say practice, it means you should know where to learn it from. And after you have learned what is necessary, you can keep practicing it to develop what you have learned. We will then follow up with InterviewBit. InterviewBit.com is what you can call a competitive coding website. But even with it being just a competitive coding website, it helps you to galvanize and to integrate whatever you have learned together. It follows a structure, it follows a pattern, and it has a few levels, you could say. A level of problems which people face, and you can be assured that one level is not ahead than the other, and you can follow it with ease. And the final part of the roadmap to DSA would be solving on different websites after you are done with InterviewBit. We will go about at max 2, maybe 3. We have a few options for you. You can choose the way you like. So we will follow up with a few languages now. Okay, you need a language to code. Why? It helps you transfer your logic the way you want it to be. So we say we want instructions. We keep saying that a language is a set of instructions, but what does this actually mean? Let's say I want to tell a computer that draw me a circle. It is not Siri, it is not Alexa yet, it can't really draw me a circle. So I have to give it a set of instructions. Let's say pick up a pen, pick up a paper, put the pen on the paper, and draw the equation x square plus y square is equal to r square. We specify what is r. It will be able to draw the circle, but not initially. So the set of instructions that we give it is how it will follow through. Some languages are very close to how you would talk, and we will go about why SQL and Python do that and how it gets important for you to know them as well. C++ is a popular competitive coding language. Java is after that, and we will now follow up with C++. Alright, C++ is the most popular coding language. By popular, we mean that a majority of the people know this. It is popular among the competitive coding community as well, and we call it a mid-level language. When we say popular, we wanted to we want it to be a first choice actually, and I would actually strongly recommend you to choose C++. The reason being, you are still learning, and when you're learning, you need to even know the solutions. We want the solutions. Why? Because you want to know the best way to solve the problem. How could someone make it better? And because a majority of the people are solving it in C++, you will find solutions in C++. At the same time, we have something called the STL, or the Standard Template Library. The Standard Template Library is available in most of the coding tests. You are expected to use it, and it gives you a structure of templates and code structures, which are also a few of your data structures, to code it the way you want it to be. C++ is considered a mid-level language between a low-level and a high-level language. A low-level language, you could say, is C. C is used on your embedded systems, on your microchips, and used directly on processors of very small robots even. C++ is basically C with class. We wanted to make it an objective-oriented programming. An object-oriented programming is a language which has the opportunity to use objects in it to make it easier and to stop repetition. Sometimes what happens is a code might have to repeat itself multiple times. This makes it difficult to update and change the code. Good code is considered to be non-repetitive, so that a single change is enough to transfer the code to a new update. Every company wants you to know at least one object-oriented programming language, and our goal here is to give you the most basic skills required, to show you what the basic skills are to go ahead with your placements and your career in software engineering. Alright, where should you learn C++ from? So a common method we will follow, which we followed as well, and we found it to be very helpful, was that you can learn it in chunks as well. And after you're done learning in a few chunks, we want you to really understand it well. Understanding happens with a little hands-on practice. And for hands-on practice, we have a solution for you as well. That is through InterviewBit. Alright, so we are now going to review what InterviewBit allows us to do. So you can see over here that we have a few introduction, we have a few control statements, control structures. You can use these with the topics itself. So when you're going about the learning resources, you will come across these topics. And we reviewed them ourselves, and they were very small pieces of code which lets you understand, okay, so this is what I actually learned. This is how I can apply it. Coding is very logical, and because of logic, it can be understood very easily. You will understand something easily when you try it for yourself, because once you try it, you will get to understand it. We will open a simple one for you to show you how it is actually. Alright, so let's say pointers, arrays, and pointers to array. Pointers are considered to be a relatively difficult topic, but if you practice it well enough, and if you learn from the right places, it's actually very easy. I myself, I never understood pointers like 2 months till I got placed. The reason was I never found a very good resource to learn it from. It was always very challenging to me that why should I use pointers at all? But after understanding how helpful it can be and how to use them effectively, it was very easy for me to get accustomed to it. As you can see here, you have a bit of your syntax, you have an understanding of what can be used. We have a sample code for you which can understand how it happens well. And at the end of it, we also have a small coding section. We will go about the coding section once you actually log into it, and we will come across that later. If you do not log in, you can review what the site is. So we will show you how the review happens much later. Okay, so these are actually, Mehdi, could you just go on the previous slide? Yeah. So these are two learning resources. The New Boston was from where I learned C++ myself, but for a few of the advanced topics like pointers and more, I wasn't getting it well enough. That was where I discovered the Cherno. The Cherno teaches you the pointers and more advanced topics in a very easy to follow manner. He shows you the examples directly and it's fun to follow as well. So I would recommend you to learn the New Boston first, cover it up well, and for all the advanced topics, you can follow the Cherno. The Cherno gives you a very quick revision of a few topics. You can open it for yourself later. And once you're done with that, you could say that you're done with C++. Go back to interview bit, practice it a bit. If you want more practice, you can always just Google. A software developer's main goal is to find solutions to problems, your own problems as well. And how do you best find them? Finding the best solution is an important part of how you're going about it. And that can happen if you're well versed with finding it. So Google up some practice problems and you will come across it very easily. We will now follow up with Java. Java is the second most popular language. The way it was for C++, Java is mainly used in many of the companies because at a high level language, it is also very secure and it is constantly updated to a few terms. We have something called legacy systems. Legacy systems can be considered as code bases and basically a lot of code lines which were created many years ago by a few of the old developers and it is still relevant today. It is still working code. It was made in such a way that even after updating it, it is backward compatible. A high level language cannot directly access your hardware, it only remains at the software level. At the same time, Java makes it very easy and secure to keep coding with it. You can choose Java as well if you wish. Java is a little bit longer and more tedious to type. That's what people keep talking about, and it's something that we faced as well. But it also allows you with the collections framework. The collections framework, like the standard template library, has a few classes, structures, and functions that lets you code very easily. And it is worth doing a few projects in it as well. They have projects ranging from desktop to the backends of a few websites as well. And it was an old language used for Android development initially. It has been switched up with Kotlin, but it is still relevant in some places. So if you wish, you can choose Java, but our first preference will be C++ for the time being. Where should you learn it? Just the way we had gone about with C++, you can do the same with Java. We have a practice on interview bit and we have a few resources for you. We haven't personally reviewed them yet because we followed up with C++, but we are sure that whatever we are showing over here, to the best of our knowledge, we teach you very well. Alright, and now we come up to Python. I'm sure you would have heard about Python a lot. And Python is very good. I wouldn't say it's bad or anything, but it cannot teach you a few of the intricacies that you are supposed to know at times. Some questions of say there are a few aptitude MCQs which are asked initially, and they are also asked in C++ and Java predominantly. Python is a little rare. A few companies do use Python, and it is worth knowing it as well. But if you want for just the basics, we would recommend C++ and Java. In some cases, you may not find a particular solution. As we had mentioned with C++ and Java, you can find solutions very easily. But with Python, it can be a bit of an issue. It's still a bit new and people are still developing the resources where a person can learn Python for data structures and algorithms from. Python has been coming up with some coding tests. I have seen the option in a few places, but a problem which I would have faced is Python has a very huge library structure. Maybe a library that I am using, which is very good for me, may not be available for my test. It might just be paranoia, but at the same time, I didn't want to risk it and I went for with C++. I use Python for my projects. Python is very good for developing and prototyping code and tests very easily. I also use it when I wanted to go forward with machine learning. You will come up with machine learning and some very good technology very soon, but we recommend it that you first complete your data structures and algorithms. A very easy explanation for this was we had a mentorship program back in our college where we were given a mentor and we had a group. We learned to solve a particular problem. We made a very good website out of it. But after looking back at it, I realized a very important detail. It wasn't efficient. If I had 100 users, okay, it may still work. But if it expanded to 10,000 users, if it was scaled up to many more users, it will slow down. Why? Because we didn't follow the best of the architectures, the best of the strategies, and we couldn't follow through. For this reason, we recommend that you first complete data structures and algorithms and then follow up with your coding. These are a few resources and practice as well for Python. The language can be learned from YouTube. As we said before with Java as well, we didn't learn Python for data structures. But if you do this, if you do a YouTube search yourself, you will find the best resources at the top. So you can learn the language first. You can practice it on interview bit. We have a reference book for you. This reference book was very popular to learn Python at a much deeper level as well. If you wish to go deeper, you may use it. And if you want to learn data structures and algorithms predominantly in Python, you can search for that on YouTube as well, and you will find the relevant sources easily. All right, you know a language, you know syntax. Can you make Facebook? No, you may not. It will take you some time. Let's go about how to go about that. All right, building logic. The main goal of the software developer and his main skill is how logical he can be when he's presenting it or he's presenting his solution to somebody. You can learn statements and control structures like if else, for loops, switch statements. They translate your algorithm to a coding language. So the steps followed generally are you see a problem statement, you make a solution for it through a brute force logic. A brute force logic is the first way that you build some logic, and then you go about it with some for loops and some switch statements to really translate it. We will come across come across some more structures later on, but this is just an example of how it happens. Object-oriented programming with classes and functions are also used at times to build some logic. The best way to do this is to practice. As we mentioned before with interview bit, you can learn the language initially, but when you're going forward, you will have to practice a bit more with some easy questions. Your brain takes time to learn. Your brain has to make some new neural connections when it's actually happening. This was taken up in a study about how people actually learn. How does the brain learn something? And that happens slowly. Think Like a Programmer was a resource that Mehdi had showed me, and the first 16 videos are relevant to you. Think Like a Programmer goes about a few problems that coders face initially when they are just starting off to learn. It will help you how to learn easily, how to frame your answers, how to build your logic, and I would strongly recommend that you would at least watch it once in the order shown before. So we cross language, we cross data structures, and now we are at building logic. Let's take up a very simple problem. Let's say I want to add the first 10 natural numbers in our orderly system. We represent, let's say, two variables. Int stands for integer. We use it in multiple languages to represent a whole number. We represent to use integers, so from a negative spectrum to the positive infinity. We want to loop the variable number, which goes from 1 to 10, and we want to add this number into sum. The loop does this, and we get an answer of 55 once we end it. Now we end the program. All right, so this follows our basic logic. So even if we were doing it by ourselves, we would say 1, we add 2 to it in a particular number, we get 3. To 3, we add 3, we get 6. And we follow this up till we get 55. All right, it works for 10 digits. What if we want to expand this? Maybe the next slide. All right, let's say we have this very huge number. I don't even want to try to put this into words. Let's say we just have this number. We follow the same way. Your average CPU back at least a few years ago, it could do 10 to power 6 calculations per second. This number is 10 to power 9 if I'm not wrong. And something that will happen with this is that it won't be able to calculate it very fast. So it will take you 1,000 seconds before it is actually able to get your answer. And even with that, because we're using very big numbers, computer takes more time. Is it really recommended that you wait for 1,000 seconds for such a simple answer? Is there an easier method for this? I think there is. Because we are software developers, we find solution to problems. I'm sure you would have heard of Gauss's equation. He created this when he was a child. There's a story that goes that when he was in school, the teacher was bored, told the students to add up the first 100 numbers. The teacher thought it would take them at least an hour. Gauss did it in 10 minutes. How? He made an equation for himself. This equation has multiplication, addition, and division. Each of these operations do not take more than 6 total calculations in the processor. So instead of this 10 to power 8, 10 to power 9 operations, we can do it in 4 to 5 operations. This takes less than the tenth of a second, less than 1 microsecond, and you will get a solution. This is what we're talking about logic and how you build it to an efficient solution. This is called an efficient solution. So we went with brute force to find a simple solution. We tried to scale up a problem to an edge case. An edge case is something as a final try that your solution should even work to the worst possible answer. If this was a problem, your code should be able to solve it. That is your goal. So arriving to such a solution is the skill of a developer, and you can grow it with a little practice. Practice happens when you know where to learn, and the resources that we are about to show you will help you do that. All right, advanced language specifics. We talked about STL, we talked about collections, but what really are they? Let's go about a simple definition I found online. The standard template library is a set of C++ templates and classes provided to common programming data structures and functions such as lists, stacks, arrays, etc. It is a library of containers, classes, algorithms, and iterators. What does it mean? We have data structures called stacks and queues. Data structures are memory units or formulations of memory units, structures of memory units that lets you input data and fetch the data in its most efficient way possible. Sometimes when you input a particular value, you want to remove the last value first. This is called last in, first out operation, and that is what stacks do. So if you ever have a problem which requires you to check something at the front or the end of it, you can use stacks. So this is the smart way that you go about selecting data structures. If we want to access data not sequentially, but in a more selective manner, we have to choose between arrays and trees. Arrays are considered to be either direct RAM or it is a direct sequence fetcher. If you know where it is, if you don't know, you have to go about sequentially. In a tree, you can actually do it a little bit easier, which we'll go about afterwards. Every language does have some of these data structures, and we will go about it later. This is a common requirement when it comes to knowing how to code. You can also create your own library, but people who have made these STL and collections framework, they either made it in a much more lower language to make it faster, and at the same time, they provided you with the most efficient solution and how you can use it for yourself. It is important to understand how it works, and we will show you a few resources which can help you learn this easily. Many advanced questions cannot be made from scratch. You are not expected to write a 200-line code in a half an hour coding test. For such cases, we can use the STL collections framework. It is expected out of you to use them, and it can be used for your coding tests. All right, so these are a few data structures. We just go about what these data structures can be. Sorting is a function which is used for some data structures, like arrays, let's say. So if we have a random assortment of numbers, you want to sort it efficiently. Some sorting algorithms have their pros and cons. Some are faster, some are complex, and some can give you somewhere in the median of it. The more complex something is, it has to be faster. But don't take this out in a very normal way. We have a statement called the Occam's razor, which says the most easy solution, if the complex solution and the simple solution are giving us the same result at the same time, choose the simple solution. That is something you have to do. So a simple solution is easier to read, easier to understand. And a good software developer does not only make good solutions, he makes it easy to understand. Linked list is a way that data can be spread out and can be fetched sequentially easily. Lists are built on top of these linked lists, they are more generalized. Spanning trees are basically paths which can connect various locations. If you follow a spanning tree, you will be able to visit the locations in the least time possible. Tree structures are used for a multitude of problems. They can cover up networking, they can cover up how things follow, they can cover up routes and maps to follow to reach a solution. Graphs are mainly known for paths, path of what can follow and which state you can reach. A state can be considered to be a particular location or a particular answer about after following a step, and you can also go back, loop into it. Graphs will follow such problems. Stacks, as we mentioned before, out solution. There are a few problems based around stack which you can learn eventually, and it is a very good structure. I had actually unknowingly used stack during my first project, and I realized later that something that I thought was a very good, efficient solution was supposed to be pretty basic. But I was still proud about how I could come about it using a bit of logic. Hashing is a very important topic. It is said that if you don't know the solution, try hashing first. There is a 90% chance it might just be the solution. It is a very good thing to know, and we will go about how to learn this afterwards. Alright, let's take a very simple question. I want to search for an element in a linked list. And we know that all of this is actually sorted. There are a few better methods even with arrays, but for now we're going to consider a linked list and a tree. Let's say I want to find the sixth or the seventh element. Let's say we want to find the number 7. A linked list will follow 1 to 7. It will take up 7 operations to reach the number 7. Let's try with a tree. So we start at node number 8. From 8, we know that 7 is less than 8. So we move to the left. We reach 3. Is 7 less than 3, greater than 3? It is greater than 3. We move to the right. We are at 6. Is 7 still greater than 6? Yes, it is. We move to the right. And we finally arrive at 7. So in 4 spaces, we were able to reach our solution as compared to 7. If we expanded the way we did before to 100,000 nodes and we want to find a middle node, a linked list will have to do that many operations to reach it, but a tree can do it in log of that number. We will learn about log later. You can do it through the resources, but these are called algorithmic complexities. You will learn it eventually, and they're covered in the resources that we have given you. Do not pay a lot of heed to the words right now. It's important that you just understand the point we want to make. That is, better structures will lead to better solutions if you use them efficiently. Alright, how do you practice and explore STL? I came across this person on YouTube whose name is Bo Kian, and he set up a very simple STL framework and a few videos to understand the basics of STL first. It teaches you what is a standard template library, how does it work internally, and why is it so helpful. I would recommend that you learn from here if you want to understand how the STL works. A friend of mine by the name of Sagar Udasi, he's a colleague of mine. He compiled a book. He loves competitive programming a lot more than me. I was more into development, and I came about competitive coding and data structures at a later stage. I took his help to understand where to learn it from. When you're learning data structures and algorithms, I would recommend that you review his book. What he goes through are the different types of problems, and the biggest opportunity and the biggest positive outcome of the book is it has coding functions. It has functions written in C++ in the best efficient solution to teach you. Your recruiter does not just want to know if you understand it, they want to know if you can code it. And learning the best way to code is also a skill which you need to know. That was something I came about in his book. So you can do that after you are done learning an STL YouTube series. Java collections, we haven't used them personally, but as always, you can just go on YouTube and search for Java collections. you will find the best results. The same with Python and data structures. So if you click on these links, you will reach where you want to be and you will get the solutions accordingly. Practice and explore SGL. We went about to show you C++ and fast track. It also has the SGL functionalities about where you can practice this. The same goes for Java and Python. So you can visit these websites when you want them. They are very similar. They help you to practice your SGL. The way to learn is to first learn a chunk, learn a few structures till you feel that you are a little saturated. After you have learned, practice it. You will reinforce what you have learned. Computer science in a nutshell is a GitHub repository by same friend of mine, where he has shown various books and resources where you can review what you have learned. You can go about this if you have never come across computer science before. It shows you what is important and what a person is at least supposed to know. Our goal with the seminar is to teach you the basics. After you have learned the basics, you can grow as you wish. All right. We have come across a lot now, haven't we? We went across a coding language. We came across STL. We came across data structures. It feels like a lot. It can be overwhelming. Is there a better way to even learn this? Yes, there is. We find a way to do this. Helpful tips and guidelines. You will feel overwhelmed if you do it a lot. You may forget things if you don't practice them. So it's important to take in a few small bites. Learn every day consistently. Take out an hour, take out 2 hours to learn a bit, or at least revise what you know, so that you can reinforce what you have learned. The quality of what you learn matters more than quantity. Something Mehdi, I remember, and we were talking about this. It was that even if you want to solve 10, 20 problems a day, does it really make sense if you're solving 10, 20 easy problems, which are just doing multiplication, addition, or division? Or does it make sense to challenge yourself a little bit to something that is new, learning a new topic, and solving the questions on that topic? Take it on your own time. Do not compare yourself with others. Do not fall into something called the imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when someone keeps gloating about what he knows and what he does, and you feel small that, okay, I have to reach here as well. And you end up not knowing everything the way you're supposed to. This is where a friend can also help you. Mehdi and I teamed up to solve everything. When we teamed up, we came up with an Excel sheet. In this Excel sheet, we solved problems, we added personal comments, which we will show you right now. This is an idea I came about because I wanted to log whatever I was doing. Logging is where I'm storing anything new I have learned. So the first website that we will recommend after learning STL is Podge. We came about this particular resource when I was reading a Quora blog, that you should solve the first 16 most solved problems of Spodge so that you can learn what logic is like. You can learn very basic problems so that you know how to use your STL, which you have learned currently, and go about it. So we kept a link of the problem. We mentioned the site. We mentioned if we have solved a problem or not, which was done through these checkboxes. And we set up a few comments. Mehdi, can you please go up a bit? So these comments were for us personally. So I wanted to learn that, okay, this question can be done using math. You can speed up C++ tactics using cin.tie null, iOS base, sync with stdio false. I came across this solution on the internet that if you do this, you can speed up math. So anything new that you are learning, anything new that you want to remember, you can log it into this Excel sheet with your friend. At the same time, when we are solving it, we also knew that the other person has solved this question. So I felt like solving Mehdi's question, Mehdi felt like solving my question, and kept trying to push each other to solve more. We did the same for interview bit, which we will show right now. Alright, so you can learn first and then practice. It allows you to look, and we would recommend that you look at the solution in the beginning. People cry and crib that, oh no, I don't want to read the solution. I've attacked this for 2 hours. I want to attack it for 3 hours. Understand one thing. If you did not get it in the first 1 hour, it will be very rare that you actually hit it off in the next 2 hours. We are not saying do not try it, but if you are at a lack of time and you don't feel comfortable to wait about so much, it is recommended that you at least look at the solution. InterviewBit has done a very smart thing where they have something called a time limit. The average time a person takes to solve this, and the maximum time you should take to understand the question. After you have reached this maximum time, and if you haven't come across a solution, they have a few hints and the solution itself. The best solution possible, according to them, is reviewed on the website, and you can visit that later. We will show how that is done at a later stage. So, repeating myself, first practice, first learn, then practice, look at the solution, do not feel bad about it. Alright, Spoj top 60 most solved questions. When you are learning STL, after you are done practicing STL, you want to practice basic problems. When we want to solve basic problems, you should have very easy ways to do that. Use the Excel sheet from this point on. You can even do it from before if you want to log the basic questions as well. If that is on your goal, on your aim, do that. We started our method very late, so we started off with Spoj. You can do it much earlier as well. This particular link opens the most solved problems, and it has already been sorted out for you. You can open this right now. We will see what it looks like. So the Spear Online Judge, we can see that the users are the number of people who have solved this question. It goes from very simple difficulty, as you can see. So this will help you see a few very easy questions, and you can go about it. We look at a very simple example right now. That is life, the universe, everything. You're just supposed to output a very simple number, whether a number is greater or not. You can do this at your own time. So a very simple question which lets you understand logic, helps you understand outputs and inputs and how they work. Something that I actually remember was I spent how inputs and outputs work in coding test. Am I supposed to make a function to output? Am I supposed to take all inputs in an array, then output it? No, just input and output. It was that simple. But understanding that itself was difficult for me. And that is why I followed this Spear Online Judge to test how online judges actually work. We will go back to the PPT now. Alright. So after talking about Spoj, we'll move a little forward. Can you build FB now? No, not yet. A little bit more. Give us a chance. We follow. Competitive coding websites. A coder's strength is being able to take a real-world problem, apply an algorithm to solve the problem, then convert the algorithm logic to code. We want to code for automation. By automation, we mean that, let's say I have a question that my bike can run 40 kilometers on a liter. I have five gas stations at this particular range. I know that no gas station is more than 300 kilometers apart. Some are lesser, some are more, but a particular one is even further. I can carry a little gas with me. My car or my bike can handle 400 kilometers at once. I want to figure out which gas stations I should actually go to fill my gas up so that I can pay minimum cost and go the furthest distance. This problem is very general. It's something that I did recently to plan a road trip for me. But it is also a problem that can be solved through code. So a person can input the gas stations, he can input how much fuel he has, he can input his economy, and he can solve the problem. A real world problem like this was solved using logic. It could be translated into code, and you can also solve this. This is also a popular coding question which you will come across eventually, and you can solve it the way you want. So the way we followed the logic was we understood the inputs, understood the problem, came up with a logical solution, and we solved it. Proficiency in data structures and algorithms is not called competitive code. People will keep using this buzzword actually for competitive coding. It is very different, I would say. Data structures and algorithms is a basic skill. If I rank problems from 1 to 5, level 5 problems will be considered as competitive coding. A recruiter will not ask you more than number 4. Some really good companies, some really like product-based companies, which is the FANG companies, they usually ask you level 5. So competitive coding over there might be helpful. Do it at your own time, but for now, till level 4 is sufficient. A coder is judged upon by a company about how he can solve problems. Over there, you're expected to know data structures and algorithms, STL, and a coding language. As long as you know this, you will be able to answer your recruiter. Now we actually come up to the main interview bit. Here, I chose this website after scouring at least 10 to 15 competitive coding websites. I found this to be helpful for a few reasons. First was because they actually had their own roadmap. They had a few levels that these problems are considered basic. Understand the basic problems first, then move to the next level where there are much more difficult problems. And even the topics themselves, like the first level will be inputs, outputs, time complexity. The next was bit manipulation, how to use strings. Strings are basically sentences and characters in a particular sentence. Breaking down characters and sentences, it can be done through code, and strings comes over here. There are a few more topics like stats and queues which come in the next level, and you can be assured that a previous level will not have a question of the next level. So this allows you to be confident that you should be able to solve these questions in order. So I would recommend that you only solve interview bit first. After you are done with this, after you have proved to yourself that you know all the topics, go forward with more. We will open the data structures the data structures roadmap over here to show you how it is. Alright, so we will scroll down slowly. You can see the level 1 time complexity. The way I told you about searching with trees and arrays is a time complexity question. You come across the best way to solve it. You can actually analyze how slow or fast it is. You go about it. Arrays and math comes at the next level. You learn about arrays first. You learn about maths, geometry. It is a very important question set. It's considered to be level 2. There are some more advanced questions, but the basics is what you want to learn here. The basics of how they function comes over here. So level 3 are these few particular topics. You will come across them eventually with binary search, strings, bit manipulation, and two-pointer. Bit manipulation is used to speed up calculations. Division is considered to be a slow operation. But if you use bit manipulation wisely, it can be done in one operation. And you can do it for as big as 10 to 20 digit numbers in a very smart way, which you will learn for yourself by using something called the left shift operator and the right shift operator. Two pointer methods are used in a few problems concerning arrays and lists. Do it when you find the time. Linked lists, stacks, and queues are basic data structures where you might actually start using your STLs a bit more efficiently. Like this, we will follow level 5, 6, and more. We will open up a very simple problem for you right now. So linked list, we have a little explanation about what it is. You have an explanation of what the code internally looks like. Every question of a coding test might either ask you to make something from scratch, or they may ask you to fill a particular function. This lets you get accustomed to it. Practice lets you get accustomed to how you will solve it when on your actual coding test day. You have a few explanations with tutorials. You can do it either over here or do it before with the resources provided by us to you. Example questions lets you test whether you understood the problem, and after you are done with this, you can attack the different types of problems. Go down. So something easy with interview bit that we found was the different types of questions. These are the types of questions that a recruiter asks at least 90% of the times. It has been divided into types of questions. This is very helpful to me because I wanted to know not only that, okay, I have this topic. I don't want to solve 20 questions of the same type. I don't want to solve 20 questions of just list sort. I want to solve list sort. I want to solve list trick, list math, list and two pointers. Solving it this way was very helpful to me because I could speed up myself. If I knew how to solve one type without looking, I can move to the next question. So a method that you can follow is open a question. If you cannot solve it by yourself, look at the solution, learn the solution, and then go forward with it. Proceeding to the problem here, you can see these are the different types of languages available to you. You read the problem statement, understand the logic, then you understand what is required by you. You can start to solve it now. You can see on the right hand side, you have hints. These hints open up as per the time. We aren't logging in initially so that you can actually review everything first. After reviewing, if you sign into to interview bit, it will lock up the next levels. You cannot cross levels until you solve their question, and only if you solve their question can you actually prove to yourself and to them that it is wise for you to move forward. This stoppage for me helped me to not skip steps. Having a very firm base helped me to learn step by step to a good roadmap way, taking baby steps, but learning it from the foundation levels. I would recommend that you try to follow the same method to go about. Log these questions into the same Excel sheet that you have solved this question. Your friend may or may not have solved, he may have solved a different question, and you can go about solving it together. At the bottom, we also have a discussion forum. Discussions are from different coders who might have faced some issues. You can ask doubts. It will be answered eventually. So if somebody has a doubt in the test case, they will mention it over here. A person will give you the solution. They may even try to give you the entire solution. I recommend that you do not just solve it and don't do it just for points. Maggie, do you have something to add over here?
Yeah, so actually, you won't be able to solve the problem until and unless you log in, of course. So once you log in, I'll actually log in with my ID. Okay. So this is my solution, right? So you don't, in a C++ program, normally you write the main function and then you write the whole code. But here you don't have to start from the main function. They just tell you to complete a particular function, right? So you have to write the solution over here. You can choose different languages like Java, Python, which we talked about before, and there are some options to change the themes as well. And as Shriyansh mentioned, just because I've solved the problem over here, I'll get some hints after some time. So let's say I am not able to solve the problem, it's already been 10 minutes, then I'll get one hint, right? Then let's say after 20 or 25 minutes, I can at least get the solution approach, not the complete solution, but they'll tell you the approach about how you would go about the problem. And then once the time's finished, in this case it's 49 minutes. So if I'm not able to solve even after 49 minutes, I'll get the complete solution. They'll show you the complete solution in a lot of languages like Python, Java, Ruby, and even in all the solutions, they have three versions of the solution. One is editorial, one is fastest, and lightweight. Okay, we'll go back to the PPT.
All right. So as we mentioned, with the fastest and the most memory efficient, this is asked to you by the recruiter. He wants you to try to save on space, and he wants you to try to save on time. It is considered to be a dual relationship. The more complex or or the memory consumption is high, it can be faster at times only if you code it properly. Sometimes a code can be very bad, that it is very heavy with memory as well as working very slowly. So understanding how algorithm complexity works will help you go about this. I think you had heard about try to use a two-pointer method in the previous question. We saw that two-pointer was also a level 2 problem, which was used in a level 3 problem afterwards. So like this, if you follow it step by step, you will be able to solve future problems accordingly. We will continue with the forward slides. Alright, as mentioned before, why I used interview bit, I wanted something which was systematic. I wanted to solve questions of different types. I wanted to be sure that I knew this question type, and now I can move forward with it. Because I knew what I wanted to know, it was right in front of me, and I could attack it the way I wanted to attack it. I was stern with myself as well because I wanted to get a very good resource that also tells me what to do. It wasn't just on my choice, it was something that was tailored for me. I set rules for myself, they set rules for me, and after solving it efficiently, I was able to complete this in 2 months. It is thought that if you have done it at least a little bit before, if you know your coding, if you know STL, and if you know at least have done coding a little bit, it will take you not more than 3 months to get placed. But people do take their own time. People can be slow, they can be fast. Do it at your pace. But keep consistency and keep solving it properly. After you are done with interview bit, and only after you have solved all the levels, would I recommend that you try to follow up to different websites. Different websites show you the user interface, sometimes which are asked in companies. They give you questions asked in different companies, and gives you a more holistic approach to different problems. Geeks for Geeks is an important site for every coder. Why? Everything software related has been talked about and has been logged in this particular website. So, common questions which are asked in companies, placement stories, placement questions, and at the same time, some questions which are related to, to your topics as well, such as computer networks, operating systems, and database management systems. These three subjects are important to know as a coder, and you can learn about this as well as see questions on this on Geeks for Geeks. So I would recommend that you review this website on your own time after you are done by solving interview bit. HackerEarth and HackerRank are used by a few companies to take up some tests. I came across at least 5 different tests on HackerRank before I got placed. LeetCode is a very popular website when it came a few years ago to solve questions which are asked by Google, Facebook, and some FANG companies. You can generally use this for practice as well. It can help you skill up and do it properly. LeetFree was a free version. CodeForce and CodeChef. I tried them. I couldn't quite understand how to use them properly, so I didn't go forward with it, and I tried to find some better resources for myself. You can do it if you have already done it before. If you find it helpful, solve interview bit first and choose maximum 2, if not 3 websites, because you want to log your own skills first, because you don't want to solve the same question on 4, 5 websites without learning something new. All right, data structures and algorithms. These are a few relevant resources that I had used. The first one for some very advanced topics, like when I was solving trees, it took me 2 whole weeks before I could actually complete the whole topic. It was difficult for me. I was giving myself time as well. I learned from different resources. I learned from the algorithm playlist mentioned here. I learned from the data structure playlist over here. I learned from finally the data structure book compiled by a friend of mine. It is important that you understand the language. It's important that you follow with STL. Visualizations and animations help you the most. So whenever you're trying to learn a particular topic, Google it, go on YouTube, see how the question is actually attacked, how the question is functioning internally, so that it helps you understand. Do not force yourself to solve many questions per day. You will come across questions which you cannot understand or you cannot solve. Do not expect yourself to understand everything immediately. It will take you time. It will take you a few days. So give yourself rest. I was very down on a particular day back in second year where I wasn't able to understand a very simple problem. I talked to a senior of mine, and he gave me a very simple. Um, I would say he gave me a solution to my problem. He gave me a what's the word for it? He gave me a solution. I would say that just sleep, and when you wake up, you will find a solution. And I use it to this very day. Whenever I'm facing a very tough solution, I'm tired. I will sleep for a few hours. I will wake up, attack it again, and 90% of the cases, I will be able to solve the problem. So take it from me. If you cannot solve a question, sleep. Wake up, solve, you may be able to find it. The YouTube playlist can be opened by you yourselves. So the algorithms mentioned here are from a person named Abdul Bari. He helped me solve a few questions. Data structures and algorithms. This particular link is very exhaustive. So whenever you're trying to solve questions on Interview Bit, you can come here, learn the resource, then go there and attack it as well. There you will find a few problems like recursion and dynamic programming difficult. When you come across think like a programmer, he goes about how to think for this. When you go about recursion, you can learn from this playlist from a person named Aditya Verma. I had tried to do dynamic programming for so many years. I never understood it because I didn't know how to attack these problems. Only after I learned from Aditya Verma did I understand I'm supposed to answer it in this particular way. So take this particular resource from me. I hope it helps you as well, the way it helped me. Do not worry about trying many resources. It helps you gauge a more holistic approach, but do remember to learn only of a particular topic first, practice the topic, then move forward. Log it onto your Excel file first, then move forward. So open this at your own time. You will find it helpful to you. We will now move forward. Okay, more on Geeks for Geeks. Now that we have covered what a website wants you to do, now that we have covered what some person expects out of you, what are the different types of topics which you should know? So these two resources, they cover up various topics that a person wants you to know. The top 20 questions asked in this company, the top 20 questions of this particular topic. These few resources will help you understand what is asked, and you can gauge for yourself what you know and what you don't know. Review this on your own time. Don't go here first. Follow the PPT as it is, and you will be able to get the solution to whatever you desire. Alright, aptitude tests. Now we are going towards what a coding tests they require out of you. There, let's just revise what we came across now. I know it is getting very repetitive, but repetition helps your brain to remember things, and that's a goal of mine right now. Language, STL, logic, data structures and algorithms. Now there are three types of questions that are, or three types of subjects that are required by you in this order. Database management systems, a very, very important subject, and it is used extensively in your projects. Database management is how you are sending in data to be stored somewhere and efficiently taking it out. It's a very interesting story or an SQL, which I will share with you a little later. Aptitude tests are generally also asked on language-specific questions like C++ and Java in many companies. So huge MNCs generally ask C++ and Java. Why? They are object-oriented programming languages, and at the same time, they use it themselves. So they ask this a lot, and it's recommended that at least know these two, if not one. Java is asked question-wise. You can practice it for yourself. Geeks for Geeks gives you MCQs. Not only does it help you revise what you should know, you can also learn from this yourself by the questions that they ask you. I would say it is exhaustive enough. At times, I found a similar question directly in a coding test, and because I knew what the solution could be, I could actually attack the problem and was able to solve it efficiently. You can open the links on your own time. We won't do it right now because it is easy to understand. We will now talk about learning a few topics. So I use these two particular resources. I use Gate Smashers because in computer science as a course, you learn these three subjects. So I wanted to just revise this, and I use Gate Smashers. Knowledge Gate, I reviewed it a bit. It is very exhaustive. So if you want to learn a topic a little bit more in depth, you can do it over here. A company may ask you in face-to-face interviews about how this works. They expect you to know this. But if they are asking you if you ask me the ranking of what you should know, language specifics of data structures as well, followed by your database management system, then operating system, and then computer networking. Follow this in this particular order. and in this particular hierarchy to go about your coding tests. Important subjects. So as mentioned before, these three are playlists from GateSmashers which I used myself. So database management and SQL, operating systems, and then computer networks. We will talk about SQL right now. SQL is the language of databases, and every language finds a way to implement SQL. Why only SQL, and why is this so popular? So the story goes about like this. Back when the US military wanted to use its databases efficiently, they collected the different scientists who had worked on database management over there. They didn't want to use multiple different syntaxes, multiple different methods. What they did was they collected these people, put them into a room, told them, you have 4 days, find a solution for us, make a language for us, make it the best you can. When you come out, you should have a language for us. That was the birth of SQL. SQL came at such an important time where it was just budding. After it gained popularity, it was made universal, and now it finds its way in multiple different languages and multiple different use case scenarios. NoSQL, or not only SQL, finds its way as well after SQL. It is popular right now with many huge companies where they want to make database management more popular. So if your data is not only text or not only numbers, you can use NoSQL. SQL Zoo is a website that I had used to learn and practice SQL. I first learned how to do it and then use SQL. SQL Zoo. SQL Zoo gives you small tasks on their data sets to achieve, and you can answer these queries through their solutions. We'll try to review the website right now. All right. So you can see here that we have a few tutorials. You can follow the tutorials as well, so that after you have learned the theory portion, the theory is not just about SQL coding. It is also about a few of the concepts which are followed in the language, which are database administrator. So the job of database administrator is to mainly attack on the management of the databases, and that is learned through a subject of database management systems. You can learn these few topics the way you want. You can learn the select statement, sum, join, and more. In the left-hand panel, you can see the various topics covered, and it may seem very easy as a UI, but it is also very helpful. We just opened one of them to show you right now about how it looks. So this is what your schema. A schema is the way your table looks like. So they have given you a task, like number 1, choose whether where name like as to find a country that starts with B. So you can solve this for yourself. Usually the first question or the second question is solved by them. So you can submit the query and they will give you the solution. So over here, they have mentioned that it is starting with F. So if Mehdi will just change the F to B, the solution should mostly work. So we can see that we have this particular thing. It is not the correct solution because we are not getting a smiley face, but you can attack this for yourself later. So we will go back to our PPT now to move on with the other topics. All right. So now that we have covered SQL, we will go forward. Okay. Can we solve Facebook? Can we make Facebook now? I want to make Facebook. Almost there. Maybe.
Okay. So now it comes to developing projects, right? When you want to develop projects, the first question you should ask yourself is what you want to build. Is it a web app, a website, or a mobile app, or a desktop application, right? So once you decide on what you want to make, of course, you would need to learn some technology, learn some stack. So you need to choose a stack, right? So next step is choosing a stack. So for example, to learn to learn Android, you should choose Kotlin, right? Kotlin is one of the programming languages that is preferred for Android development. Now, once you choose the stack, of course, the next step is to learn the stack. Try to look for resources on Google. Most probably, you'll find few good resources But in the later slides, we'll share resources with you for certain technologies. Now, once you have enough knowledge to, build a simple project, so you can start with a simple project like a CRUD web app or a mobile app. So what I mean by CRUD is CRUD basically means create, read, update, and delete. So basically, you're creating some data and you're storing it somewhere, maybe on the device or maybe on the server. Server is basically a machine that is dedicated for that specific purpose of storing data, right? Then reading that data, you might modify that data and also deleting the data. So this is a basic simple project that is enough for a resume. Now you might want to go further. You might want to build large projects. So directly starting a big project on your own might be intimidating for you. So I would suggest you to follow a project, to take inspiration from a project. You can find a lot of projects on GitHub, and you look at this solution, how they approach the problem, because how they approached would be better than your approach. It might be more efficient, right? Now, let's look at the domains. Let's look at the domains that are available. And if you talk about web development, you have two things. You have front end and back end. Now, front end is something that the user can see. So, for example, you developed a website, and I'm using your website. I'm a user of your website, and I'm able to see the home screen. So that home screen, to implement that home screen, you need front end. So for front end, it's recommended to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the basic elements of front end. So with these three technologies, you can at least build a good front end. You can at least build a login form without, of course, without proper authentication with a database. But at least it is good. It is good for building a simple website. Now, Angular and React, as you can see over here and here, are basically frameworks that help you build your front end, or that ease the process of front end. So if you want to build something large, they help you ease that process. Now we come to backend. Backend is something that the user cannot see. For example, I'm using WhatsApp. I send a message to Shreyansh, but I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know where that message is going, to what server, or how that message is being received by Shreyansh. So that thing which I cannot see as a user is backend, right? So the most popular, or one of the most popular backend frameworks is Node.js. It is implemented in JavaScript, and one of the most popular frameworks implemented in Python is Flask and also Django. Flask is basically a micro framework, and Django is a large framework. Basically, Flask is more suitable for small projects, and Django is suitable for large projects. So both have their own pros and cons. You can also use PHP for backend, but if you were to take suggestion from me, then I would tell you to start with Node.js or either Flask. Now we come to desktop applications. In desktop applications, you can learn Java, right? There are certain libraries that you can use to build the GUI of your desktop application. By GUI, I mean graphical user interface, something that the user sees. So like in web, you have front end, something that the user can see. In desktop, you have the GUI, right? Now in Python, Python has certain libraries like tkinter, where you can develop, using which you can develop desktop applications, and you can also develop desktop applications in C Sharp. Now these three are, I mean, even one of these is enough to develop a business type application. But if you want to go into game development, then I would suggest you to use Unity. It's a tool that uses C++ as the language to build the logic of the game. So, for example, in Unity, you have built a character, and once the user taps on that character, what should happen? That is implemented with C sharp. So C sharp is basically the logic. Now we come to Android, the most popular, in fact, the official language of Android, Kotlin. Now, Kotlin is preferred over Java. You can still learn Java for Android development, but Kotlin is preferred because of features like null safety. And I wouldn't go deep into this, but it happens. But when you develop apps with Java, there's something on null safety which crashes the app, and we don't want that, right? So Kotlin has these features like null safety, which will prevent the app from crashing. And this is just one reason. There are many other benefits of Kotlin and why to use Kotlin. Now we come to iOS. If you want to build apps specifically for iOS, you can learn Swift. Swift is a language that is similar to C++ and C sharp. So if you have already learned C++, then Swift will be very easy for you to learn. Now, you use this language Swift in Xcode. Xcode is basically a tool to build the UI of your app, right? So if you want to place a button at the bottom of the screen, you use that tool to do that. And what should happen when the button is clicked? That logic is implemented in Swift. Now, if you talk about both iOS and Android, so what if you want to develop apps for both iOS and Android, but with a single language, right? You can use Flutter for that or React Native. Flutter uses Dart as the language. Again, Dart is very similar to C++. And since I knew C++, I just took 2 or 3 days to at least get the basics of Dart. So Flutter is growing rapidly, and it is one of the most popular software toolkits developed by Google to develop Android and iOS apps. You can also use React Native that was developed by Facebook. They developed this software toolkit so that they could, implement a native feel in the UI of their apps. Because initially Facebook hadn't had that native feel, that smooth transition and animations, and they wanted that. So they created React Native, in which you can just code in JavaScript and implement the UI of the app and the logic in one single language for both iOS and Android. Now, of course, you developed an application. There is some data that needs to be stored, either locally on your device or remotely. By remotely, I mean somewhere on a server. A server, as I said before, is a machine that is dedicated for one specific purpose, and that is storage. SQLite is a database that stores data in a table format. So, like for example, I have a table that has columns name, age, gender, and then I have some rows. So I have some entries like name, Mohammed Mehdi, age 20, right? So it stores in a table format on your device itself. Now, MySQL is similar to SQLite, the difference being that it can also store data remotely. That means on a server. So, for example, you developed the next Facebook, let's say, right? And you developed it with your PC. Now, you can't store all the data of your Facebook on your device, right? You just have like 500 GB or maybe 1 TB or 2 TB. It's not sufficient to your device is not sufficient to store all of that data. You need to store it somewhere remotely, and that's what I mean by remotely storing data, storing it on a device that is dedicated for that purpose. MongoDB is a NoSQL database. As Shreyan said, NoSQL doesn't mean that it does not have SQL. It means not only SQL. So it stores data not in a table format, but in key value pairs. If you would have come across this data structure called dictionary in Python, you would already know about it, but don't worry if you don't know about it. Basically, it stores data as key value pairs. So again, if I talk about an example, I have name, age, and integer. Name, age, and gender. So name is the key, and value is Mohammed Mehdi. And age can also be the key, and value 20. So it stores in key value format. You call it JSON format, but MongoDB uses binary form of JSON format. So don't worry if this is going bouncer. Uh, the only thing that you need to remember here is that MongoDB stores in the form key value pairs rather than in a table format. Now you got to know what you need to learn if you want to build something. There are some resources that I want to share with you that I really found helpful. So if you want to start with front end, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I would recommend you to see W3 School's tutorials on HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Very well explained, short and precise, and their content is really good. Uh, Even I started learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from this website. Now, as I said before, Angular is a framework that helps you in your front end. It's like if you want to do something with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, there's a lot of work that is required. Now that a part of that work is already done by Angular, so that's where Angular helps you. You can refer to Traversy Media's YouTube channel for Angular. He has an Angular crash course, and I really found it helpful. Of course, this is just a basics course. He won't teach you advanced Angular, but at least it is good for starting with Angular. Free Code Camp's React.js crash course is good as I've gone through it. And if you want to learn Flask, then I would recommend you Corey Sheffer's playlist. I personally love it because even I started learning Flask from Corey Sheffer's YouTube channel. The way he goes about it is just wonderful. He explains everything very well, and he also develops an example Flask web app so that you get at least enough knowledge to develop a CRUD application. Traversy Media's Node.js crash course is wonderful for learning Node.js. I would recommend this because when I look for other resources, I couldn't understand it completely. At least I couldn't understand it completely. But when I looked at Traversy Media's Node.js crash course, the concepts became clear, and I could understand everything. Why we are using so and so things and why we are not using so and so things. All of that became clear by viewing Traversy Media's crash course. Now we'll come to Android. For Android, yes, there are good YouTube channels also, but uh, there is but if you're learning while doing it, that's better, right? So for Android, I would recommend you to do the code labs provided by Google. This is syllabus that is provided by Google. So if you click on that, okay. So now it tells you about the course, tells you what the course is about and the prerequisites, what the course covers, right? And these are the things that the course covers. And if you click on any one of them, it will teach you all those things. So Kotlin basics like variables, integers, strings, all those data types, then functions, named arguments, and everything else. So this is a link that will help you to learn Kotlin, the language Kotlin that is used in Android. Next, this is the link to learn Android Studio. So now you know Kotlin, you know the language, but that's not sufficient. You need to know some Android concepts like activity life cycles, fragments. All these are covered in this link. It is similar to this one. It is just like a code lab, which covers certain topics. And once you have, so basically, Android Studio helps you develop the UI of the app, and the logic behind that UI is implemented in Kotlin. Okay, now we come to iOS. Initially, I had started learning iOS development. I haven't completed it yet, but I wanted to learn it. I referred to other courses, but they were quite intimidating for me. So I went to this YouTube channel. He covers all the topics in a very easy way. Okay, this might take time to load, but all the topics that he covers is like really easy, and even the installation process was a bit hectic.
Hey, what's up everybody? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and we're just going to give a quick intro to the course and some of the things that you're actually going to be learning. And so, if we go down here, we start off with...
Sorry for that. Yeah. So even I struggled in the installation process, and he helped me with that. So I would suggest you to see his playlist if you want to learn Swift in iOS development. Now we come to both Android and iOS. Flutter, one of the most popular software development toolkits developed by Google. Uh, Again, I would recommend you this YouTube playlist from the Net Ninja, because all the topics really good, and he also develops some example apps so that you get an idea of how to approach a particular problem in Flutter. And also for React Native, the Net Ninja is really good. For database, of course, as we said before, SQL Zoo.net, it's very good. It's not just good for interview preparation, but it's also good for if you want to learn SQL so that you can store all the data of your mobile application or web application on a SQL database. It's a very good website. Again, MongoDB, I would suggest Traversy Media. Traversy Media is just wonderful when it comes to web development and databases. He covers all the topics with a really good flow, and you will understand everything really well on his YouTube channel. For ML, there's a link I've provided. It's from Kaggle. It has a lot of stuff that is required for learning machine learning. So it starts with Python. Of course, you're going to use Python for visualizing data, for analyzing data. So you need to learn the language first. Then they give an introduction to machine learning. What is machine learning, and why should we use machine learning? All of those things. And what are the first models that you can build in machine learning? It also has some other topics like pandas, which is used to manipulate data. And then they cover SQL, because if you're working with data, you should be knowing about databases like SQL so that you can retrieve all those data, and then you can work around with that data in pandas, or maybe some other library. It goes on, and so I recommend you to go through this if you want to learn machine learning. It provides you a good strong foundation of machine learning. Now we'll talk about some good projects that are enough for a resume, fairly good. So we'll talk about the basic projects first. You can develop a blog. A blog basically means that you have your own website, wherein you put posts about something that you are interested in. For example, I can have a Flutter blog because I'm very interested in Flutter, and so I can keep posting blogs on that website uh, that cover topics related to Flutter. Then we come to a to-do web app or app. A to-do web app consists of creating to-dos, of course, and then modifying those to-dos. And then when you open the to-do web app or app, those to-dos need to be read from somewhere, right? So this to-do app covers that CRUD functionality of creating that to-dos, reading that to-dos, modifying those to-dos, and deleting it. Web crawling or scraping is basically taking data or scraping data from the web. So you're taking some data from the web using code. So Python is one of the most popular languages when it comes to web scraping. uh, there are some libraries that you use like Beautiful Soup that will help you to scrape data or take data from a particular website URL, and you can also filter it out by specifying what classes or what HTML tags specifically you want to receive data from. Now, you might be thinking, why is e-commerce mentioned in the basic app? Now, I'm not saying to implement the whole e-commerce app with orders and everything. An e-commerce app that just shows the front end, that means it only shows products. That's it, right? It shows the price, it shows the products, but the user can't buy it, because this will get you a good hand on front end, because you would be displaying the products in a grid view or in a list view, right? So this will help you to understand front end really well. If we talk about machine learning, then one of the most basic projects is face detection. So basically, if I come in front of the camera, the ML model will detect my face and maybe draw a square around it, just like the cameras of your phone. We'll come to more advanced projects. You can go, of course, you can go further if you want in all these basic projects. For example, in this to-do app, you can add the functionality of adding inline images or inline audio, stuff similar to that. So for a particular to do, you can add specific audio if you want, or a video, or maybe you can store this to do on a particular server. You can add authentication. By authentication, I mean logging in, and then the user can add a to do. So you can go further in these basic projects also. Now we'll talk about some advanced projects. A path visualizer is basically, let's say if you have 2 points, A and B, and there are some walls in between. So you use some algorithm like Dijkstra's algorithm or A-star algorithm. Don't worry if this goes a bouncer. Basically, it's an algorithm. It's an approach to find a path that will take you from point A to point B. So a path visualizer will visualize the whole path. It basically will display all the blocks or all the paths that are discovered, and then it will select the shortest path from point A to point B. So for this, you need CSS animations, and that's why it's more on the advanced side. So CSS animations will be used to trace out that path. Now we come to e-commerce again, but this time you will be implementing a payment gateway, or the user might be able to track their order, whether it's in the shipment stage or being prepared stage. So now you have a complete e-commerce mobile or web app, and that comes in the advanced part. Sentiment analysis is basically trying to, for example, there are if you visit Flipkart, right? People give good opinions about a product, bad opinions about product. So this basically helps a company to understand customer behavior so that they know what the next step they should take. And this really helps a lot in the progress of a company. And sentiment analysis is not that easy, but yes, of course, you'll learn, then you'll get the grasp of it. Okay. What if I want to get placed into FB? Okay. Shreyansh?
All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mehdi. So I'll just cover up a few points of what Mehdi had mentioned. First off, you want to just know a basic language, like a basic website or application first. Companies generally, for a fresher, they don't look directly for their tech stack, but a few recommendations would be having at least Node.js. So the MERN and mean stack mentioned before, they're helpful to understand because the company does look forward for people who know this. Java is, as always, recommended because companies also want a Java developer. When it comes to mobile applications, Kotlin is more profound and is used in different places more as compared to Java. Maybe an old company wants to use Java, but they wouldn't try for it. React is also used in quite a few places because it is a cross-platform uh, function and a cross-platform resource. You can use it the way you like. Machine learning won't be considered basic. If you want to learn through videos, you can go on YouTube and search for CentX and some other resources as well. Free Code Camp has its own machine learning tutorial, which you can learn completely. Machine learning is not just about copying functions, it's about understanding how they work and why they work. Because if you are going to be showing projects of machine learning during your interview, a person will ask you what it is. We will now go forward with a few interview tips of like do's and don'ts which come about it. All right. So we're going to go across these few topics. You can then we will go in more detail right now. All right. So interview tips: communication, thinking out loud, let yourself go long. Explain to your interviewer what you are thinking. So even if I had my simple problem of my adding 10 numbers, I was able to explain what was happening. So imagine yourself teaching somebody as to how it is happening. You're not exactly teaching your interviewer, but you're showing how it works. That's how you should frame it. You may want to say the same thing, but there are better ways to say it. So framing sentences is an important part of communicating with your interviewer. The goal of a recruiter is to understand how you fit in the company. They will do this through questions, they will do this through behavioral interviews, and it is important to follow through with them. The more practice you have by talking with your friends or having a mock interview will help you better. So the Geeks for Geeks placement preparation is talking about all of this. It also talks about resume tips. You can go for that as well. And the Coding Blocks resume roast of the 3 episodes, they give you a few don'ts of how a resume should not be like. So you can go for that as well. As for the basic things you should know, your language, your data structures, your DBMS, maybe communication networks and operating systems. For a project, you should have at least 3 good enough projects which have a front end, which is the UI, your back end, the logic, and your database management system, which is your database of MySQL or NoSQL of your choice. This can also extend to Android development. Machine learning is always a big plus because data, visualizing data and understanding how data functions is a common task now, and people generally look for this as well. So if it interests you, you can obviously learn machine learning. It does take a little time to get proficient in it, but it is possible. So if you have time for it, go for it, but it is not a requirement. People don't expect you to know machine learning. All right, resume tips. So we just go about this. Not more than 1 page. I have seen people putting 4-page resumes of the entire bio data. A recruiter does not have that much time. They're taking more than 400 people a day. They don't have time to read a 4-page resume. Keep it to 1 page. Now, how to fill that 1 page? 3 projects max. Don't add projects you did in your first year or a second year. If you have, make sure they're good. They want at max 3 projects on your resume. Education somewhere on the top. All of these points are actually reviewed by Goldman Sachs, and I am considering that they know what they're doing. Obviously, they know what they're doing. So this format could help them as well. Different companies may have different requirements, so you can fit it according to their needs. Having it a bit more customized per company will help you. An objective may or may not be needed. It is solely your choice. So the priority on your resume has to be education somewhere on the top. Your work experience of any kind. This can be an internship. If you've actually worked somewhere, you can add that as well. Or if you have also just been an assistant somewhere or a research intern, you can add that as well. Projects and publications. If you have any publications, add that. Projects, keep it to 3 maximum. Your tech stack. What do you generally work on? The technologies that you know, your skills that you are familiar with. Do not add Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint. It is generally not used. Unless you actually have an advanced skill in Excel, do not add it. Whatever you add on your resume, it is your personal profile. Whatever you add can be questioned on. So if you are putting something, make sure you're able to ratify it and you know the topic well, so that if you are asked a question, you should be able to answer your recruiter. Extracurriculars, you can add it if you have space. Do not add something that you earned in school. Add something relevant which they feel will be helpful to the company. Communication skills, management skills, if your extracurriculars in your college are helping that and they're actually portraying it, you can add that as well, because it tells the recruiter what you are and what you have done till now. So in behavioral interviews, they have questions of situations. Situations such as, what if this happens in a team? What I could do was, I have faced these issues when I was working in my fests, so I could take the story back to how I actually dealt with it. And being honest in your interviews is the most important part. Nobody likes someone who's faking it or lying. You're not ever supposed to do that. Speak the truth, speak it the way it is. They want to know you, not a false identity of you. So make sure you are true to yourself. You can use something called a split resume approach. I have uploaded my own resume in the resources. You can also review Clement Mihalescu's resume. It is something that I watched on YouTube. Goldman Sachs resume template has been shown in the latest slide as well. Alright, so this businessinsider.com has Goldman Sachs resume advice. We have a video as well. The Google Drive link has my resume and the books which you can review for data structures. Overleaf.com has some very good templates which are considered to be very, I would say, much more satisfactory on a pretty good range, that these are good resume templates which you can use. Review this site as you want. Alright. Now, before we reach here, I'll just cover a few more points about your interviewer. So, do not get scared. You have to be calm, composed, and polite. When you're talking, don't speak too fast. Speak what is on your mind, but be aware of what you are talking. It shows a good image of you, which you are going to be maintaining for yourself. You can read up some interview questions, which were based on HR questions for software developers, to understand how to answer questions. You mean to say the same thing. You're not telling lies, but you're framing it in a way that's more polite and is answering it in a more diplomatic manner. That is important for a recruiter. Now we will talk about searching tips. Now, generally every college has a training and placement office. You can look at it the way you want. Most companies come on campus, like the smaller to bigger companies will always have an on-campus reach out for you. Companies will also look for the locations which are around them. So major cities will obviously have better placement records, but you can always go for off-campus as well, because companies generally prefer this. At most, you can always go to your seniors and they will tell you how it is, because your seniors know how they got placed, so they will have tips for you. Follow their leadership, it will help you as well. Some companies do run the entire business on Excel. Sometimes you may not only want Excel as a skill, you want to be more spread out with your skills. So choose your company wisely. And to get a company of your choice, you should have the relevant skills. So do these skills for yourself, they will help you. I am mentioning all these skills because I noticed how people in my college themselves, they didn't know a few of these skills, were from different branches, non-CSIT branches, and they weren't getting placed because of this particular reason. So you can also go for LinkedIn, you can cold call some people, you can go for job searches. And I haven't tried it myself. I have tried it a few times for LinkedIn and I did get a few responses. So I can say that it does generally work. Company searches often have a clause for no freshers. So your first company, even if it is not the best for you or not the best fit for you, you can wait a few years, you can learn over there, and then you can switch the company. 2 years is taken as the average turnover, but if you do wish to stay for a little longer, to learn a little more, stay for a year more, then you may shift. Some have explicit graduate programs, which I've come across. Like a few companies like Dow, Telstra, Barclays, they have graduate programs to teach freshers for what they are doing. They stay with them for a little longer to learn technologies and apply them for relevant skills. We go forward now. Self research. Whatever mentioned here is to the best of our knowledge and is deemed to be true. There could have been some questions which we may not have been able to answer because they could have been very college specific. In such cases, it is always ideal that you ask your seniors about how it is done for you. The placement cells of different colleges may actually cover it differently. And in such cases, it is important to remember that your seniors are your best resource. You can always go to them and ask them the verifiable doubts for your college and experiences which they had, which could help you get placed. You can connect with people over LinkedIn. You can cold call people. You can go on job hunt sites to search for a relevant job for you. As long as you're covering the basics, and the basics over here are the coding language, your data structures and algorithms, how to have STL, having at least three good enough projects, and having good communication skills. As long as you're prepared with this, you have a very good chance of getting placed in at least a graduate fresher role. The opportunities are endless as long as you're determined to hunt them down. So, good luck to you, and I hope that you get through this. Mental health. Rejection and dwindling hopes are a very common response to not getting placed. It is important to remember that this is not the end. Failures and mistakes are just the beginning, and you will learn from them. The more times you try, the more times you are going to learn and you're going to find a way out of it. It's always good to find a friend or your family who can support you through this and you can find a way to gain back uh, your confidence. Lack of confidence sometimes really loses your chances, so it's wise that you find a way to cope back with it and come back to it. I found sleeping, talking to a friend very helpful to me as it would just reset the way I would function. In such ways, you can find one for yourself. As an example, for the buddy system, I had Mehdi talking through to me for dynamic programming. And after talking with him, I was able to find a good resource and I learned through it to have dynamic programming. It's important to not lose hope as it can be very disheartening, or it could also lead to a revelation. Everyone is different and you will find through it. I love to code, so I always came back to it. You have to find your drive to it and you will come through. Now, after all of these points, what does it mean to be a good software developer? It is not just about your technical skills. We are now shifting towards agile methodologies, and for such cases, it is important to know that your communication matters a lot more. I remember a friend of mine telling me that his senior told him they aren't looking for the best of the best when it comes to technical skills. They just want a person who knows his basics well and who can learn well because they want someone who can communicate with the team to grow completely. It is not about I anymore, it's about us and we. That's how agile methodologies work. A smaller group having a project where they don't have any outsider coming in and telling them what to do. The autonomy which people get from this is very helpful, and that's how they move forward. So, this is what we wanted to share with you. The slides are available to you in the description below. Do like, share, and subscribe the video if you found it helpful, as we want it to reach multiple people.